Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into an absolutely fascinating analysis by Dr. Sufyan. It's an exploration that attempts to draw a direct mathematical line between a 1400-year-old Quranic verse and Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. Seriously, we're going to see exactly how a religious text from the 7th century is being examined through the lens of modern quantum mechanics. It's a wild ride, so let's get into it.
So Dr. Sufyan structures his whole argument around what seems to be, well, a massive theological paradox. It's a contradiction that trips a lot of people up. Think about it. If we accept that the creator of the universe is completely free from the constraints of space and time, how on earth is it possible for that entity to experience a day that equals 1,000 human years? I mean, if a creator has a day, doesn't that inherently imply they're stuck in the passage of time just like us?
The root of this paradox comes directly from a very specific quote from Surah As-Sajdah, verse 5, which reads, "A day with your Lord is like 1,000 years of your counting." Now, you might be thinking, this sounds like a straight-up contradiction, and skeptics point to this all the time. But Dr. Sufyan, he actually suggests the exact opposite. He argues that this verse isn't a contradiction at all. Actually, it's the ultimate mathematical clue.
Section 1. Relativity and the Novelist. To solve this mystery, the analysis argues we first need to redefine what time actually is, starting right at the Big Bang.
You know, we usually think of time as this straight, eternal line, right? Like a ticking clock in the background of the universe that's just always been there. But modern physics tells us a totally different story. Time itself is actually a physical dimension, and it literally didn't even exist before the universe was created at the Big Bang. Dr. Sufyan makes the point that the creator of the universe didn't just make stars and planets. They created time itself. So logically, the creator has to exist entirely outside of this dimension.
He brilliantly illustrates this with a super relatable analogy. Think of a novelist writing a book. The characters inside the story, they are totally trapped in the timeline of the book. For them, a 50-year narrative arc feels like an entire lifetime. But the novelist, the author sits completely outside that world. They can write those 50 years in just 2 hours while drinking a cup of coffee at their desk. The author is completely unbound by the time inside the story simply because they're the one who created it.
Section 2. The Physics of Time. To figure out how this connects to the ancient text, we need a little help from Albert Einstein and special relativity.
So Einstein basically proved that time is not some rigid ruler. It's actually kind of squishy, almost like a rubber band that stretches and compresses. As the source breaks it down, there's a clear progression. When your speed increases, the time you experience actually slows down relative to everything else around you. And if you keep accelerating until you hit the ultimate cosmic speed limit, the speed of light, time doesn't just slow down, it completely stops. Boom, absolute zero.
To put that into perspective, let's look at a photon, a tiny particle of light. If a photon was created 13.8 billion years ago at the Big Bang, and it travels all the way across the universe just to hit your eye tonight, well, billions of years have passed on our human clocks. But from the perspective of that little photon, not even a single millisecond has passed. It's crazy. Physics establishes a hard, undeniable rule here. At the speed of light, you break free from the space-time fabric. You are totally independent of time.
Section 3. The Lunar Equation. With that mind-bending quantum rule in our back pocket, Dr. Sufyan turns us back to the exact wording in the 7th century text.
Remember, the verse specifically mentions 1,000 years of your counting. Okay, so how did 7th century Arabs actually count their years? They didn't use the sun, they used a lunar calendar. One lunar month is simply one full orbit of the moon around the Earth. That makes one lunar year exactly 12 orbits. So to calculate 1,000 years of their counting, the analysis just multiplies those 12 orbits by 1,000. And that gives us exactly 12,000 lunar orbits.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. We have to translate those 12,000 orbits into a physical distance. But to compare this mathematically with the speed of light, physics demands we use what's called an inertial frame of reference. Since light travels in a straight line in a vacuum, Einstein's principles say we have to remove the curves caused by gravity to make a fair comparison. It's kind of like taking a tightly coiled rope, snipping it, and laying it completely flat on the ground so you can measure its true length with a tape measure. We literally have to mathematically straighten out the moon's circular orbit into a perfectly flat line.
Modern science tells us that the distance of just one of those single, mathematically straightened lunar orbits is about 2.158 million kilometers.
Next, we take that single orbit distance and multiply it by the 12,000 total orbits we just figured out make up 1,000 years. Using modern supercomputers, Dr. Sufyan's analysis calculates the total straightened distance the moon travels over an entire millennium. And the result of that calculation? It is a massive number. We are talking approximately 25.9 billion kilometers. That is the exact true distance the moon covers in 1,000 lunar years. I want you to just lock that huge number in your brain for a second. All right, now, just as Dr. Sufyan suggests, we're going to leave the moon behind completely and run a second, totally separate calculation. We are going to calculate the exact distance that light, literally the fastest thing in the known universe, travels in a single, standard, 24-hour Earth day.
We already know light travels at the staggering speed of roughly 300,000 kilometers per second. To find out how far it goes in a day, we just do the math. We multiply 300,000 by 60 to get a minute's distance, then by 60 again for an hour, and finally we multiply that whole thing by 24 to get one full continuous day of travel.
And here is where it gets absolutely incredible. When you run that calculation for light's continuous 24-hour journey, the supercomputer arrives at exactly the same number we saw earlier, roughly 25.9 billion kilometers.
Section 4. The Final Reveal.
This brings us right to the climax of Dr. Sufyan's mathematical breakdown, where theology and physics seamlessly align.
When we compare these two journeys side by side, the result is exact. The distance the moon travels in 1,000 lunar years is identical to the distance that light travels in a single 24-hour day. The long, exhausting cosmic journey of the moon over a whole millennium is covered by light in just one single day.
So what does this all mean? Well, Dr. Sufyan argues that this verse from 1,400 years ago wasn't just throwing out a literal 24-hour day for God as some sort of poetic metaphor. Instead, using the calendar understood by the people of that time, it was actually providing the exact, mathematically perfect formula for the speed of light. And why the speed of light? Because as Einstein proved for us, the speed of light is the absolute, precise threshold where time becomes zero. It is the ultimate scientific proof of an existence completely independent of time.
Which leaves us staring at a truly provocative question. Long before we had telescopes, supercomputers, or quantum laboratories, how on earth did a 7th century text manage to encode the precise speed limit of the universe? It's a mystery that really blurs the line, challenging us to figure out where ancient history ends and modern physics begins.